Hi, everyone. Welcome to Breakthrough Moments. Vicki Griffith with Breakthrough. I am always so excited on Thursdays when I bring guests to be interviewed on this Facebook page. And for those that are going to be joining us live, thank you so much for being on. And you can actually leave comments and we'll be able to see them. And then we can make comments on your comments. If you're watching this later, please in the comments put hashtag replay. That helps bring it back up into everyone's feed so we can touch more people and help impact more people who are looking for change in their life of some type. And today I'm really excited because she's going to talk about loneliness. And I'm not excited that we're going to become lonely. I'm excited that there's someone out there that's an expert that can share with us how to overcome loneliness, what that looks like, and what is it doing in our daily lives, and how to change that if we want to. So welcome. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Vicki. It's a pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
You are so welcome. So I have done a lot of these interviews over the past couple years, and what I've discovered is that the people I interview come to where they are right now, usually in their business, from a personal experience that's happened. Some coaches will say they make their mess their message. So would you mind sharing a little bit about what that journey was for you that brought you to this place now?
Sure, I would love to. Yes, loneliness. So it's about, to me, a lack of connection. And I would like to dive maybe a little bit and say that statistics from like Cigna Global Health and AARP show that it's very common or more common than we might think, even though most of us will even deny that we're lonely. But there are signs. So loneliness leaves little clues like procrastination, just anxiety, just not knowing what's going on, doubt, fear. So,
Interesting. That's really interesting. I've never heard it put that way. I would have thought as loneliness is sadness, maybe a little bit of anxiety, but I never really realized that procrastination, self-doubt, some of these other things you were talking about really could be symptoms for loneliness. And is loneliness meaning you're alone, or is this something you could possibly feel in even a group of people or in a relationship?
it's involved in all of those, actually.
Oh,
And statistics show that those, even in the first year of marriage, 28% report feeling lonely. And those married over 20 years report feeling. And it's, you know, also common in a lot of people that are single, more single people than ever. So, and I wanted to say another symptom was just health issues. So loneliness, according to Dr. Lissa Rankin, is a symptom, or health issues are a loneliness in a lot of cases.
that's fascinating. So, health issues could be a symptom of loneliness.
Yes.
I've never heard that. That's fascinating. Because again, we don't think of even in the arena that I work in, which is helping people release weight. We're always looking at the emotional impact of what's happening that's creating the urge to overeat. And truthfully, I hadn't even thought about loneliness as being one of the symptoms, and that physical health could be a symptom of what is happening. So, because you're always if it's physical, we're always looking for a physical reason, right?
Yes, yes, of course. They're all interrelated. I think my perspective is there's so many layers we are as spiritual beings, not just physical, chemical beings. So there's a lot of layers and they're all interwoven. And I would love to share too that statistics before the pandemic were 61% of Americans report feeling lonely sometimes or always. And it has increased since 2020. I don't know, but they say it's definitely increased. And for me, loneliness was like something that I had as a child. I never knew how to express it, but I know that, my parents weren't always present or always able to give me maybe the attention that we all, young children. And when I was 8 years old, I went to live in an orphanage. And although there were a lot of children there, I lived there 4.5 years. I lived there 4.5 years at the age of 8. And there were a lot of children there, but I felt lonely. And I found an escape, though. There was this library of books. And at first, I was attracted to fairy tales. It was a beautiful escape. And then later on, I connected to, I'm aging myself, but Nancy Drew, Sherry Ainsley, all of those fascinating adventures. And I lived with nuns, and I swore I would never be a nun because it was so exciting out there that I wasn't, going to lock myself up. But, that's just my perspective. But I will say that as I got married, I had children, there was a seeming lack of connection. In fact, when I was 40, I just wrote down one day that I had no friends. Or it seemed like I had no friends. It was a lack of connection. And, my husband and I, on the surface had, a marriage that was working in some ways, but there was something missing. And I connected to it, much later, but it's never too late to find connection in your life.
Sure. So help me understand what you mean by the word connection. And maybe it's different for everyone, but some people might be confused by that and say, well, what is connection? Because they've maybe never experienced it, or maybe they're thinking, well, maybe I'm not experiencing connection and I thought I was. So can you kind of give me an example of what that means?
Well, one of my favorite questions is, what was the happiest day in your life?
Okay.
And what feeling did you connect to? And why don't we feel that more often or all the time? I'm not saying that we have to feel that way all the time, but it should be a common choice to connect to that feeling. I call it aliveness, joy. It's just an awareness that we're the creator of our life. Someone said, I wish I knew who, but I said our joy can be found in our creative. The way we create is how we create joy. So
I love that. I love that, because here's what I'm hearing, and let me know if I'm hearing this correctly. So one, connectiveness is a connection to emotional connection of some type of, we'll call it a positive response. I'm not real big about labeling things positive and negative, but something that is feels right, feels comfortable, feels happy, feels expressive, and that we are in charge. It's our personal responsibility to be in charge of that. And I'm guessing that many people feel lonely because they're looking for someone else to give that to them. Is that correct?
Absolutely. And Esther Perel, she's a relationship coach. I love, she talks about how we expect today in marriage one person to fulfill so many expectations that it's like totally impossible for one person to be this perfect god or goddess, and that we really develop ourselves and create more when we connect to a variety of people. And that, yeah, marriage today is, if you put too many expectations, you're bound to be disappointed at some time or another. But it's really about how we create what we want. It's not about, and when we create, we attract. Actually, Esther says that the sexiest thing a woman or that men love is confidence. So confidence is related to our connection, and the first connection we need is to ourselves, because if we seek it outside of ourselves, we don't attract, we only attract what we are, right?
And so that connection with ourselves, I'm also hearing there's a connection to some kind of higher source, universe, God, higher power. There's all kinds of names for it. What is that also part of this connection piece?
Yes, it's what I call awareness.
Okay.
So awareness that we can have more and be more is so important to creating more. So a lot of times, like me, I drifted through life busyness. So as a married woman, I was always busy and task oriented. There's plenty of things to do for a woman who's married and has a job and, loves to cook and take care of her family. So I was always busy, but that's not connection to the self. The awareness to have is that I think the first awareness that we need to be aware that we love ourselves, and how, yeah, our subconscious mind has, filters about how we feel about that. And yeah, one of my first ahas when I took theta healing was to realize that what my conscious mind thinks isn't what my subconscious mind believes. And that was so mind blowing for me, because I always assumed that my conscious mind was what reality was. And, they say that the subconscious mind has beliefs that control 88% of your conscious mind. So you're programmed by your parents, your ancestors, all of that, society teaching you in school, all of that.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree. And they have a couple people watching, so thanks for tuning in. I appreciate that. Absolutely agree. As you know, I'm a hypnotist as well, so I do believe, and as you said, there's statistics that proves that our subconscious is in control of our belief system, which will create actions or reactions. And many times we don't like those reactions or reactions. So in my case with my clients, they go overeat because of the belief systems, and they overeat when they're stressed, they overeat when they're happy, they overeat for all kinds of. And I love when you said, when I was a child, I found the library of books, and that was my escape. And that is a coping mechanism that is, I don't rarely hear that. I hear other types of coping. And so what an amazing experience for you as a child to be open up to all the worlds available to you and the possibilities at a young age, and knew that there was something outside of those walls that the nuns were trying to hide from. So good for you for doing all of that for you. So your typical client, what is their biggest challenge? Is it the loneliness piece and trying to learn connection, or is it something else?
Yes, they don't verbalize loneliness. So, yeah, a lot of times it's health issues, me for anxiety, just
Mhm.
uh, just feeling like, their life is limited or they want more and they don't know how to, get that. So it's a process that we learn to create. Yeah, our joy is in our creative power. So we are always
Mhm.
creating and we want it to be from us and joy and connection. Einstein once said that we have two choices, either to view the world as a friendly place or as something that's, not for you. And when you see it as supporting your growth, the beauty in everything that is, and feeling connected.
Yeah,
Yes,
I absolutely agree.
yes.
I love that quote, by the way. So thanks for sharing that. I can always hear that over and over and over again, and it is so true. And regardless of whatever you think is going to happen, will happen. I was just speaking to someone the other day and made a comment about how once they got out of it was an exercise. Once they got out of the exercise, they were going to feel really tight and tense and tired. And guess what happened? They got done with the exercise routine and felt tight and tense and tired because they had already predicted it based on their belief system. So yeah, it's all interconnected. And I think that's what I like about what you do is because I know your background, right? You were a nurse practitioner, so you have the science background. When you and I have talked in the past, you can rattle off studies and you can like statistics, and you know the science behind everything you're talking about. And then through that, and maybe this is something you learned back when you were a kid trying to cope, but through that you've discovered that there is an amazing connection between something higher than ourselves, and so you incorporate that. And many people do feel like they want more and they just don't know how, or they feel trapped, or they feel like they have to let go of something. They're afraid. So thank you so much for helping people get past those experiences so they can live life more fully. And there's nothing wrong with wanting that. I think you give people permission to
Yes,
want more.
yes. We need to give ourselves permission to love ourselves so that we can invite all this joy into our life. It's
Absolutely.
how we vibrate. We're energetic, energy vibrating, so the higher frequencies create more joy. And yeah, I love that it's
If
possible and that I found it for myself.
Yeah. And that's where I was saying when we first started is like we all had a mess in our life somehow, and we figured something out that we know we can share with others and help them get through it faster and easier than we did. And I appreciate you sharing that with the world. And like I said, that your background to be come from the science medical background and have all of these add-ons that people can do. And I know it's hard. I've been in that place before, and you just experienced that, said that too, is that I've been in that place before where life was hard and it felt like it was going to continue to be hard. And having connection in any form feels too far away. So, what would you give somebody as a suggestion? What is one tiny step they can take to move towards that?
One tiny step. Well, I love Louise Hay and her mirror strategy. So it's part of my tips to have that joy and connection is to look yourself in the mirror every day and say multiple times, I love myself, because you're programming yourself your subconscious mind that you are amazing, life is amazing, and that you deserve good, great things.
That is an extremely powerful technique. And it's really interesting because that's one of the techniques I might give to one of my clients as well. But I was at a networking event and a gentleman and I were talking, and he had just finished her book and he was doing that. And he goes, I can't believe how hard it is to say, I love myself and look in my eyes in the mirror. And I'm like, it might be hard, but keep doing it anyway.
Yes, absolutely.
And weeks later, he came back to me. He goes, I'm so grateful that you gave me that advice to keep doing it anyway, because I feel so much better now and I'm just happier than I have been. So it works if you
Yeah,
do the work.
yes, it works. Whatever we constantly repeat and say, repetition is one way of reprogramming your subconscious. There are other ways too, like hypnosis, theta healing, but it's all about our self talk, right?
Right? Absolutely. I absolutely agree. And a lot of times our self talk is somebody else's voice. And so, what I mean by that, somebody said to you at one time, perhaps, you're never going to be smart, or you're not smart enough. And we say that to ourselves, but it's actually coming from that person's voice. It's no longer ours, even if we don't want to believe it. So, yeah, repetition can definitely change all that. Well, I know you have a very generous offer. Uh, and you gave us one way to experience more joy, and you have many, many more. So I'm going to go ahead and put that on the bottom there. So tell us a little bit about the 10 ways to have more joy and love today.
Well, I wrote the document just to share, some of my ways to connect to myself. And I thought about it. And I know theta healing or hypnosis is a way to reprogram, but
Mhm.
one of my favorites just to talk to strangers, because
Really?
a stranger is really a friend you haven't met. Think of all your most
Mhm.
amazing friends and colleagues. At one time, they were strangers. And, you know, it's about, talking or just opening up your mouth, just allowing yourself to be present, to connect. I don't have all 10 memorized, but yeah.
Right. No, no, that's okay. I love that example. Uh, and if I might add, not only to just say something to somebody, but with the intention of how can I impact someone for the better today? And over and over and over again, what we see is that if you help someone else feel better, you will.
Absolutely.
And yeah, and so I love the idea of chatting with a stranger. And sometimes it doesn't even have to go that far. I mean, I'm an introvert. That would have scared the heck out of me a long time ago. I do it all the time. I do it all the time now, but it would have scared me. So just smile at someone, look at their eyes and smile and nod,
Yes.
nod yes, or, just kind of hello kind of thing. And that could make somebody's day.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And you're going to feel better because of it. So I want to say thank you so much for being on the program today, sharing all of your knowledge around connection and the how you open my eyes, and I'm sure many people who watch this, to the symptoms of loneliness that we might not even are aware of, because we would have never thought that before, especially when we have loving relationships and loving families. And to think that we're lonely would have never, ever crossed our minds. So thank you for awakening us and opening our eyes to that as something we can take care of. You can't change anything until you're aware of it. You just can't.
Absolutely. And I actually had one person write to me that she's never felt lonely. And I thought, oh my God, what a story you're telling yourself. Because, I mean, we all feel joy, some, or at least maybe one.
Mhm.
We know what that is because we can feel that it's missing sometimes. Same way
Right.
for loneliness. We feel it in some ways. You know,
Hmm.
some people feel it more than others. I think there's a continuum between loneliness and depression.
That makes sense.
Like, yeah, I was going to share this statistic too about gunshot deaths in this country. 6 out of 10 are the result of suicides. Although most of us would think it's homicide. Homicide is, 40%. So there is this disconnect in a lot of society today that we're becoming more aware of and that we can actually change and make choices about.
I absolutely agree, and thank you for sharing that. I appreciate your statistics because I'm an analysis brain, so I like numbers to a certain extent. So thanks for sharing all those, and thanks for being on the program today. And this will be on Facebook. If you, like I said, if you're listening to this later, please put hashtag replay in the comments so we know that and acknowledge that you're watching. Really appreciate you being here for those who are watching now and watching later. And then we'll see you all again next Thursday at 1 o'clock. So goodbye, everybody. Have a wonderful day.